You know them ones.
Hey, Kiki. Don't care what you think. Hey, tell me 1, 2, 3. Kiki.
Hello, Toronto. This is Jesse McDougall from the show Tracks from Abroad on CIUT 89.5 FM. You know TFA is the show where international students create playlists from their corner of the world, and we talk about music, culture, whatever else feels right. Today, we're doing an artist interview with Shopé for the Christmas episode on Nigeria. Shopé, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
It is my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So we've done one other artist interview, but this is the first one we've done with a video. So we hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I just want to ask you, what's on your mind today? You've got a new sort of clothing release. Just what's going on with you?
Yes, a lot is going on with me. So I've spent the last couple of years trying to figure out how I can serve people more. So I've been very fortunate to gain some measure of success at music. Toured across Canada, toured across the US, toured across Europe, been in Africa. So I've been very fortunate that way. Won a national competition, blah, blah, blah. It's all there in the bio. You can go read it up. But the point is, I was trying to figure out how do I extend it beyond music, right? Because I always believe artists are most effective when you sample something beyond just listening to my music because it's dope, even though you should because it is dope. And so the end product of that, of years of prospecting, thinking, conceptualizing, researching, and development has kind of brought me to where I am right now, which is the launch of something called Culture Rich World.
Okay.
And Culture Rich World is kind of like the overall banner under which everything I do is going to fall. So the music, as well as a new clothing company as well. But clothing, again, it's just like one avenue of telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
Culture Rich World is really about telling the stories of people in the diaspora.
Yeah.
Kind of like that's one of the missions. And then the big vision is just telling stories from different cultures across the world in the hope that we can promote the sharing of culture across people groups. You get what I'm saying?
Gotcha. I
That's
do.
kind of like the big vision and one of the missions that flow out of that. And so we're going to use different mediums of telling stories that connect us together from different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
So my music definitely does that. It blends my Nigerian side with my Toronto side, my Canadian side. Now the clothing is also going to do that as well. And then there are other means of storytelling. So that's kind of like where we are today.
Yeah.
Culture Rich World Crew, CRW, has officially been launched. And so I'm just kind of like out here spreading the message.
Can we go back to the very start and just tell us how you came from Nigeria to Canada?
Yes, immigrant story, man. Seeking greener pastures. I was born and raised in Nigeria. I love the country. My parents love the country, and so it was kind of painful to have to leave, just because, in as much as it possesses a lot of wealth, both like monetarily and also just in terms of human capital and human and natural resources. It's also kind of like there are issues politically and economically. And so my parents just had enough foresight because they were both traveled themselves. They had the foresight of wanting their kids to have pretty much the keys to the world, if you will, right? So having certain kinds of passports can definitely open up the world to you. And so it was kind of like that story where my parents packed up everything. My dad left a 30-year career. You get what I'm saying? Left businesses and just kind of relocated and started here because they wanted their kids to have an international and a global perspective, and then essentially have the world available to them. So we have the opportunity to go back to Nigeria if we want. We can stay in the West if we want. The world is really open to us now as a result of that sacrifice that my parents made. So I was 11 at the time when we came, so I was old enough that I remember the country, remember the values, imbibe the customs, but also young enough that I was able to kind of adapt. And so my cultural makeup is kind of like equal parts Niger and equal parts Toronto Canadian as well. So that's kind of how we came here.
One of the stories that I try to pull out from the students I interview is just how is it, that change coming from abroad, starting at UofT? How was that experience for you? Was it hard to fit in and find your place?
I mean, if I'm being completely candid, initially at first it kind of was, and I say that in hindsight. At the time, I didn't think it was, but now in hindsight, I realized that it was. And the reason for that being was, for the first number of years that I moved here, I very quickly kind of like ignored my Nigerian side because it wasn't cool to be Nigerian, right? So if you think of all of the crazy, annoying things kids can say to one another, I got all those insults and I got all those teases. What's it like living in a tree? What's it like having indoor plumbing now. And I'm like, dude, I lived in a house and I drove a car and I speak English, etc. And so I was kind of like teased a lot. I was bullied in some respects, but at the same time, I also had kind of like close relationships with friends who kind of like valued me for who I was. And so the first number of years was really just me really assimilating, just really kind of like jettisoning the Nigerian part of my identity. But what was actually interesting was throughout this whole process, my dad would always say something to me. He'd always say, Shopé, like, we're grateful for Canada, but don't forget where you're from. Don't forget your roots. Don't forget your heritage. And in as much as for the first couple of years, I didn't think I was listening to that, that was just kind of like sitting in the recesses of my mind somewhere. So as I got older, as my eyes began to open up, as I began to mature a little more, as I began to see the reality of what the Western world is like, for all of its benefits, it also has scars, you know what I'm saying? Much like any part of the world. That message of not forgetting where I'm from began to resonate more and more. And then that started me on a journey of reconnecting back to my culture. So I say it was challenging. At the time, I didn't think it was, because I just thought, hey, I'm now a Canadian boy, I guess I'm not Nigerian anymore. But in hindsight, it was difficult because I only did that as kind of like a survival mechanism, you know what I'm saying, of kind of like just fitting in here. So it was kind of like good and bad. And if I could do things all over again, I would definitely kind of like tap into that Nigerian side much sooner and much earlier.
One story that struck me that I heard from you was that you were sitting in Convocation Hall, the location we all know and maybe not love exactly.
I was going to say, we all know and tolerate.
Yeah, we all know and tolerate, sure. But you were in Convocation Hall and you had a moment of realization about where you wanted to take your life. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So I was a UofT, Human Biology, Health and Disease Specialist program, the honors program. And I think 6 years prior to that, so when I was 14, that's when I started making music, right? But I'm supposed to become a doctor because that's what every good African kid becomes, right? And so I took my my pre-med human bio health and disease, but then I also made the mistake, and I use the word mistakes in quotes, of kind of like tapping into the art of making music. And then it was just like letting the cat out the bag, opening up Pandora's box, whatever metaphor you want to use. I just know that once I started writing and making music, I was like, OMG, what is this? And where has it been? And why have I not been doing this sooner, right? And I realized I actually have a skill and a talent for this. And so that led to years of me contemplating if in fact music is what I want to do, because we all know like music is unstable and it's insecure, blah, 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 blah. But medicine is a lot more secure, quote unquote, whatever. And so I spent many years trying to figure it out, thinking of my decision. And honestly, as the years progressed, it was just taking up so much more of my mind, so much more of my resources, so much more of my time, that I do remember it was like a light bulb moment. And I was in Convocation Hall, and it was during, I think it was Physio 101. And I wasn't there. I was there in body, but I was not there mentally, right? I forget exactly what I was thinking about, but it's hard to explain other than saying in that moment, it all crystallized for me. And I was like, absolutely. Like, I'm here, but I'm not here. I'm frequently absent-minded. I'm obsessed with this thing. I love doing it. I'm good at it. You know what I'm saying? Not just because I think I'm good at it, but the market, people are telling me I'm good at this as well. You know what I'm saying? And the kind of joy and the kind of excitement and the kind of fulfillment I get from the art of making music or performing or writing songs or coming up with melodies or creating videos or whatever, just like, I don't get that same measure of joy or fulfillment from, no offense, studying physio and bio and chem and orgo and physical. Even though I can do that stuff, that just does not give me life the way this thing does. And in that moment, it crystallized for me that I can't commit myself to something simply for the purpose of a paycheck. And so it was in that moment, in my second year in Convocation Hall, during a Physio 101 lecture, that I had my eureka moment, and it just dawned on me, this is absolutely what I need to do with my life, and I'm not going to pursue medicine. It was like a light bulb moment for me.
Thank you for sharing that story. There's a lot of students who feel like they're probably in that same place. They don't know, maybe they've reached a fork in the road. They don't know which way to take, which way to go. I wonder if you could give any advice to them on just how to make the most of their life and all that.
Right. So for me, one of the things that I would love to tell you that I had a Kanye moment and walked out and stormed out of Con Hall and like and just dropped out that day. I didn't do that. I have too much African in me to do that. And so, but what I knew was like from that day, this is what I'm going to do. And so the question then became of how do I set myself up for success, right? I get it. Some people are just going to want to jump and have no security net, have no safety net, and like sink or swim. We can argue as to the merits of that. But what I've learned and what I'm learning is that even the greatest entrepreneurs or greatest risk takers, they mitigate their risk. You know what I'm saying? So they try to put certain things in place in order to ensure that when they take this risk, is a high likelihood of success or some sort of accommodation. You get what I'm saying? And so what I would say is this, I would say, develop your skills, whatever those skills are. You know what I'm saying? Develop core tangible skills, because ultimately in the world, whether or not you succeed or fail has to do with your ability to adapt and serve people's needs. You know what I'm saying? Whether that's through the form of being an employee or being a business owner, so creating a product or service and then selling that to people, right? So at the end of the day, if you have these skills, you will never be out of work. And so for me, it came down to realize that, okay, like a way to appease my parents is to at least complete my, not just appease my parents, but actually have kind of like something in my back pocket was completing my degree. So I did complete my degree, but I made it clear to them and I told them, like, guys, once I'm done this, I am not going to med school. Like, I'm just not going to go to med school because when you look at what you call risk assessment, it's not risk assessment. Risk assessment and you balance pros and cons. I thought, how much money and time is it going to cost me to go do something that I may not end up wanting to do? Like, I'm literally going to go into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and I'm going to give away another 8 years of my life to do something that I may not want. Like, just like it doesn't compute. Like, the potential for success just doesn't compute when you look at what I would lose in that process. I would lose money, I would lose time, I would lose energy. And so I realized that, okay, the way I can mitigate my risk is to at least complete my bachelor's. Do you get what I'm saying? And then once in as much as a bachelor's is not much, so on and so, like, you know what I'm saying? It was at least something that I could then parlay into other things if I needed to. So to students who are in that position, what I'll say is this: I'm not going to tell you to drop out. I'm not going to tell you to stay in. All I'm going to tell you is I'm going to say develop core competencies and skills. You know what I'm saying? That and better yet, if those core competencies and skills work in tandem with your real dream, then that's amazing. So if you're a musician, you get what I'm saying? Learn how to do Photoshop, learn how to do some graphic design, learn how to do some video editing, learn how to do some photography, because guess what? Musicians always need graphic work. Musicians always need music videos. You get what I'm saying? And so what that helps you to do is that even if you say, I'm not going to go pursue poli-sci or chem or whatever it is you're studying right now, I'm going to go pursue music. Guess what? You have a tangible skill that you can monetize on the way to your dream. Do you get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so the advice I would give to you is this: like, whether you stay in or you drop out or whatever, if you know exactly what you want to do, right, and it is risky, I'll say mitigate your risk by developing core skills, because those core skills will support you on the way to achieving what you want to achieve. Long-winded way of providing that answer.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, hey, we've gone long enough. We got to talk about your music. We got to talk about this track. Pepper Dem is one that that is really stuck in my head. But you've come out with, and not only are there tracks, but the music videos are really well developed too. So I just want to let you talk about your music.
Yeah, so the music I made is afro-fusion. So it blends Afro beats, Nigerian Afro beats, and I'm sure your audience know exactly what that is, with hip hop and R&B. And I think it's really unique because, again, owing to my cultural identity being both, like, my Afro beat isn't going to sound exactly like a Wiz or a Burna or a Fireboy or whoever you're listening to, because those guys are steeped in a specific culture. And so their music comes out of their experience in that culture, and it's dope and it's fire and it's amazing. There's space for that, you know what I'm saying? And then there's hip hop and R&B that comes from a very specific context, a very Western context, because at the end of the day, it just comes out of your culture, right? And then you have people like myself who are like, I'm a bit of this and I'm a bit of that. You know what I'm saying? And so if you look along the spectrum of people, all the way from like a Burna or a Fela all the way to, like, I don't know, a Drake or Chris Brown or whoever, there's a whole slew of people in between that kind of like fill in that spectrum, and you just kind of like find where you fit in there, right? So what I'll say is that if you're the kind of person who enjoys Afro beats with a Western touch to it, you get what I'm saying? Because it speaks to you, then you love the music. Because I grew up listening to hip hop and R&B on this side of the world. I'm a Toronto boy as well. When I moved to Canada, I've been in Toronto pretty much my whole time I was here. But I'm also deeply connected to my roots, and so I make Afro-fusion. And so you get songs like Pepper Them, which is just like a slang for saying like make them jealous, that are very bouncy and very rhythmic and dance. You get a song like Rikiki, which is very kind of like, how do I explain it? Very rhythmic and it make you dance. And then you get a song like Those Words, which is Afro-fusion in there, but is a lot more kind of like what would be classified as Alte back home. So it's a lot more R&B-esque, spacey,
I've heard of that. I've heard of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? You get that vibe because that's where that R&B is now really coming to play with the Afro-fusion. You know what I'm saying? But whatever kind of song I make, you will hear the Afro element in it, even if whether it's the language that I speak or slang that I use. But the kind of music I like to call it classified as Afro-fusion because it blends Afro beats with hip hop and R&B. And you're going to get that from my music. And I think it's super vibey.
Nice, nice. You've also, you're wearing it right now, but you have some new clothing,
Yes.
and you're talking about your music being sort of a mixture of different influences. And I see this butterfly icon, this butterfly design that's on all your stuff. You might not expect that from someone who's doing rap and all this kind of stuff. So tell us about the butterfly. Tell us about your clothing.
100%. So again, like, because I see myself as that, I'll tell you what I would say my mission is. I think my mission as an individual is to help bridge the diaspora, like Africa with the West, right? To be ambassadors for both, like an ambassador for Africa to the West and an ambassador for the West to Africa. You get what I'm saying? Because I do think there's a lot of wealth to be mined there. And so and that's just flowing out of the kind of person that I am. And so I am for the individual who wants to be connected to back home, but maybe feels a sense of distance and wants an approachable way of beginning to get involved with that. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'll provide. That's what I'll bring. And so that's really what Culture Rich World, which is a company that I started, it's the overall brand, CRW Crew, or culturerichworld.com, is meant to do. Like I said before, our main vision is to promote the sharing of culture among people groups. And one of the missions that flows out of that is amplifying the voices of those in the diaspora. And so in our logo, the butterfly is iconic, right? This is one of our first pieces, and there are going to be other pieces that are going to come, and they're all going to have the emblem, the symbol of a butterfly. But why the butterfly? Because for me, the butterfly is so symbolic of my personal journey, and I believe a lot of people's personal journey, right? So you look at the caterpillar and the butterfly. The caterpillar is unimpressive. The caterpillar is something you would ignore. It's not something you would really pay attention to. But within the caterpillar is the ability to become a butterfly. You know what I'm saying? Which is this beautiful, ornamental, very ornate thing. And so I found that for me, my life is very much bloomed like that of a butterfly, because once I actually began to tap into, because guess what? The butterfly is a caterpillar, unrealized. You get what I'm saying? But all of that potential is within that caterpillar. And so for me, the kind of life I'm living right now that is just so rich in many ways, the seeds for that have always been there. You know what I'm saying? I just had to tap into it. I had to learn to really dive into my Nigerian side and connect that with my Toronto side. And as soon as I started to do that, my life started to blossom, started to bloom in a beautiful way. And so the butterfly, I think, is very symbolic of the beauty and the potential that lies within once you fully mature into the person you can be, the person you were made to be. You know what I'm saying? And so the butterfly is our symbolic animal, if you will. And then there's a globe superimposed on that as an illustration of the fact, like, this is a universal story. It's a universal story that everybody can relate to, where we've all got something inside of us. And once we truly tap into that, that's when we begin to see our lives blossom in a beautiful way. And so that's on the clothing, you know what I'm saying? And with the clothing, as I said before, because my goal is to bridge both, I want to create garments that kind of like convey the ethos and the spirit and the energy of an African aesthetic without it being too on the nose. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Right? So I love Afro print, and I'll wear Afro print. I'm not saying I'll never work with Afro print, but when I thought I want to start a clothing line that's really top tier, high quality, and speaks to a broad people group, I don't just want to do the obvious thing, which is Afro print. So how do I convey the essence of being Black and being African in a way that is incredibly beautiful and approachable for anyone from anywhere. You know what I'm saying? And that's part of where this comes from. And there's a lot of symbolism in this specific design and the other pieces as well. So that's kind of the story of Crew. That's why we use the butterfly. And then just some other like very interesting things about the butterfly itself that lends itself very well to what we're trying to do. The butterfly is one of the few animals that you can find in every single part of the world, no matter what climate. And again, that's very symbolic of what our mission is in terms of cultures being all over the world. The butterfly has hundreds of thousands of species, all with the different color patterns and designs. That's the same thing with cultures all over the world. So it just fits so well. And so the butterfly is an animal that's really close to my heart. And I just decided to make it.
Well, I'm sure everybody who's listening can tell that Shopé, the way he speaks is very motivational, right? You're giving out a lot of wisdom. And I've noticed that on your YouTube page, you have some of these motivational videos. So some of the titles include Being Introverted in an Extroverted World, The Biggest Mistake of My Music Career, and The Power of Asking, which, by the way, I used that power and I asked you for this interview. So anyway, but what I want to bring it to is your presence on the internet. You have these motivational videos, you have the music videos, you have this now other avenue with the clothing. I want to ask you about sort of the grind of establishing a presence on the internet. How has that been for you?
Man, I'm still trying to figure it out, to be honest. Like, but I think that's just the reality of what it is to strike out on your own and try to build something. You're always in a state of learning. Just as soon as you think you got something figured out, there's something else. And so it's a long journey. I don't think it ever ends. I'm thankful, like I said before, like I've experienced success in different things, but it's always a game of, all right, so how, I think now what I would say is this now I'm thinking not so much how can I increase my numbers in as much as like that is part of it. I'm thinking of how can I serve people better, right? Because I know that ultimately, if you're serving people better, then those numbers will increase. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm in a lot of different places. I'm on YouTube. I'm on obviously Instagram. I've never really figured out Twitter. So I have it, but I'm probably going to close it down soon because Twitter is too crazy for me. You get what I'm saying? Obviously on all the streaming platforms, the website and whatnot. So it's a continual grind, but it's a process, but that's what you have to do if you're trying to build something lasting. And so I'm grateful for the audiences I've been able to develop across these different streams. You know what I'm saying? And so if you like what's going on over here, then join at any one of those channels that you find yourself at.
So pre-pandemic, you won this Searchlight Award. Was that given by CBC? Is that the deal?
No, like, so every year CBC does this kind of like national emerging artist competition where they're looking for Canada's next Juno-ready artist. So this is in their estimate, not just in CBC, actually. The judging panel is made up of people from the Junos, Caris, from CBC, from the major labels, from publications, because the whole idea is to find somebody who they see has the quality and the potential to be like a top tier artist, but just needs kind of like additional support. So they have the music, they have the work ethic, they have the style, they have the branding, they everything, the package is ready. They just need some additional push. And I was fortunate enough to win that in 2019. And that was so beneficial because that put me in contact with people from the Junos, done some stuff with them, the people from the National Music Center. It opened up a lot of doors for me, just like major labels, etc. So I was really grateful for that. And then the pandemic happened.
Exactly. So, I mean, you also have a family, so you sort of have to be conscious about that. And how was the pandemic? Was it a roadblock, or were you able to turn it around and sort of come out stronger?
I think I've come out stronger. I mean, it all depends on where you're looking, right? So there's some things that were definitely affected, which I'm in the process of building back up. And there's some things that came out stronger. If I'm just being completely 100 with you, which is what I always want to be honest with you. So leading into 2020 was supposed to be a crazy year, man. Like I was going to perform at like the Juno Awards. I had an Olympic sync coming out, which later happened the following year. I was in conversation with major labels. There was a lot off of 2019. Do you get what I'm saying? And then the pandemic happened and the Juno's performance went out the window, which was a major thing, right? And I lost some other opportunities. And then I was in conversation with the major label, and then that kind of went away. I guess their priorities changed in light of the pandemic as well, right? And so I'll be very honest with you, that set me back for a little bit, just mentally, right? I'm a pretty resilient guy. You kind of have to be if you're running a business. And I'm always just like, all right, obstacle, it doesn't matter. We'll keep pushing. But I was like, this was like after years of working, like that set me back. And I actually suffered burnout, if you will. You know what I'm saying? So I actually had to like take a step back and reassess and step away from the music and find my joy once again, so I could get a hunger for creating again. And when I was able to do that, it was during that process I was able to solidify the vision of Crew, Culture Rich World, which you're now seeing the end result of. It was through that I was able to fully finish my EP, Rikiki, and even make it better and give it a better rollout, which is now streaming everywhere. It was during that period I was able to really just clarify my vision. So I definitely came out stronger in many ways in terms of having a new refined focus on what I'm doing, via Crew, CRW, Culture Rich World being like the main vehicle under which everything I do is going to be housed. You get what I'm saying? And then there were also some things that suffered as well, owing to some relationships that kind of like, or some potential partnerships that didn't go anywhere. I was banking on certain things, and when those things didn't come through, other things fell by the way. You get what I'm saying? All in all, overall, I believe everything happens for a reason. You feel me? And so because of that, I'll say if I were to rank everything, I would say even with the losses and I like to call them lessons, even with the lessons and the wins, overwhelmingly, I do believe I'm now in a much stronger and a much better place, owing in many parts of the pandemic, because I guess some things that I wanted to happen would not have been in my best interest. So now I'm captain of the ship. I'm doing what I want to do, and I have a lot of freedom doing it, and I'm enjoying it. And so far, it's working.
That's terrific. That's terrific. I'm glad to hear that. And again, for any students who are listening, especially UofT students, you're a great example to us, basically, to take all this academic stuff we're learning and put it into whatever we're passionate about, which is great.
I will say that. Sorry, I just want to say this real quick.
Yeah,
this is something that I wish I knew earlier. I was so focused on getting better on my craft and also trying to get decent grades that I didn't learn how to really serve people well. And that sounds weird to say, but anything, regardless of what you're studying, all UofT students, life comes down to human interaction. Sounds basic, right? But it's a fact. We've all heard the expression, life's not about what you know, but it's about who you know. I hate to tell you, that's just the reality of how the world works. That's just the reality. I'm not saying you can't get by on merit. I'm not saying your resume can't help you get certain things. It can, but I guarantee you, having a good qualifications in addition to a good network will get you places that purely good qualifications can't. You know what I'm saying? So if there's anything that you can learn, just learn how to serve people well, learn how to interact with people well, learn how to bring joy to people's lives, because honestly, that is going to serve you so well. That's going to serve you so well in business and career and anything you choose to do.
There you go.
But yeah,
that's a really great note to end on. We've gone all over the place, various questions, but that's a really nice place to end. So Shopé, I want to thank you very much for being on Tracks from Abroad.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate you. Please visit culturerichworld.com, all spelled normally, culturerichworld.com. Pick up a crew neck, and then just find me wherever you listen to music, SHOPE. Thank you so much for having me.
That's what's up. Absolutely. So again, this is Tracks from Abroad on CIUT 89.5 FM. Thank you for listening to the show every Saturday at 8 a.m. And thanks for watching this video. We might do a few more videos like this in the future. We'll see you later.